Today, I am going to discuss creating a connections successfully with your students in a virtual classroom. So, when I say connections, I mean between students when they're here in the classroom and at home, or between you and the various populations that you're trying to teach in person and at home. There are actually three building blocks to a virtual classroom, and this video goes over the first two. The second part will go over the last one, and you're going to see as I'm going through this a neat platform to try and create your instruction with, and that's Prezi. So you'll see I have in my screen the main topic. There's the main topic bubble where we're going to do our introduction, two subtopic bubbles, and then the conclusion bubble. You can There's all kinds of templates that you can use for working with this platform. And you can also go between having yourself there presenting and teaching live or recorded and having a fun background to hide yourself out and focus more on this topics at hand, or hiding those topics and just interacting with your students. I'm going to start off in the screen with you as I go through talking about what we need in a virtual classroom. And let me zoom in. So you have your social presence, your cognitive presence, and your teaching presence. When you interact all three, you get a community of inquiry with a great educational experience. You have your social and teaching presence creating the climate. We're going to discuss what makes up a safe climate when we're both in person and at home, learning virtually. You have overlapping between social and cognitive, the discourse, the communication, going back and forth and learning from each other and debating and really getting that critical thinking happening. Then you have your teaching presence. When you work in the both in the classroom and online, you really want to have a program that was designed for the most optimizing the most meaning making between both your students in person and at home. So we're going to discuss how we can structure our lessons and our process of learning so that they are aware that you are there as the teacher to make that great community atmosphere, but also optimizing their learning when you're not there. Here we go. And see how you can pop back out. And you can talk about your main topic here, the building blocks of virtual classroom. And you can tie it all together so that you have your subtopic popping back up again. Isn't that neat? All right. Zooming in. Your community of learners. Let's go over that a little more in depth. Social presence. Learners' ability to assert social and emotional selves. Your teaching presence. The design, the infrastructure, if you will, so you can facilitate both your online and blended learning course. And then the cognitive presence, which is in the next video. That's where you're really getting your critical thinking happening. You're helping them construct meaning making and dialogue when they're not there in person together, or when you have a hybrid situation happening like we do at first. So let's see how we can build this community of learning between in person and at home. Our course outline. The things that we're going to discuss. The first steps in creating a community. We're going to learn how to form positive expectations for our students and even help the anxious students or the students that are not really able to learn as easily virtually. We're going to discuss your role in all this and how to set up a more modular approach that will affect the hybrid situation that you're in or the virtual situation that you're in a more easy to approach way for all learners. We're going to pull it all together at the end with some resources. Let's see what our next topic is, the social presence. We're going to get started on how we can establish that safe space, create an ownership for our classroom that's virtual, have a forum that enables more interaction and feeling of that group oneness, the cohesion amongst all learners. You'll see a nice quote here that I hope you're paying attention to under social presence, and that's the why. Why are we concerned about this? This came from the Caitlin Tucker, a teacher of the year, and she said, higher levels of perceived social presence in an online course will yield higher levels of interaction, engagement, and satisfaction with that course. I thought that was really powerful statement, and keep that why in mind as we discuss how we can establish this in our classrooms. What does that virtual classroom look like? It's an area where students will engage and learn. So the key topic there is engagement. We really want to pull our learners into that atmosphere, just like we do in our actual classrooms that are live. We want students to have an access to their resources and their teacher so they can receive feedback and they can turn their work in a timely manner. So the access needs to be easy to find, easy to access when you're there or not to help them. Their families need to be able to find things to help your students as well. We need that to be optimized for whether they're there with you in person, where you can help them, and when they're not. Reward systems will really encourage this interaction as well. And it's so easy when we're in person to figure out how we can work rewards. But when we are not able to, you know, hand our students that reward and have that face-to-face contact, how can we optimize virtual rewards? Well, let's take a look and see what we can do about that for creating that social presence in our classroom. Whoops. Zoom, zoom, and zoom, zoom. Isn't that neat? All right. Creating a safe virtual space. Do not assume that your classroom environment is going to transfer online. You'll start like it's day one. You're going to establish that safe space and develop your rapport by collaborating with your students to come up with the rules that you would like to have for your virtual classroom. You'll do this as a discussion post or over a live meeting. Well, that will really give the chance for all the kids to chat like they're used to with their social media, go back and forth and start to get to know each other and see and build that rapport amongst each other and you, and then take ownership of their space. You're going to create a set of expectations to give them that uh, fun environment, but encourage ownership. So post those expectations where they can find it easily and have them come up with what the consequences will look like. Will they be stopped from being able to chat for a while in the discussion boards? Are there consequences when we are starting to hurt each other's feelings in our responses? Or is there something that they need to be aware of when they're not doing their work and turning things in on time? Open that discussion opportunity and get to know you during your meetups. So have everybody also when they're live doing this as well. Now, I really want to stress the accessing this easily in the virtual world as well as in person. So when you're doing your Google Meet and you're creating your classroom expectations, try and have all students create this together and maybe even have them break out in groups so that they can be more one-on-one with each other. You can use the chat features for that in Google Meets, and you can have them design their classroom rule for virtually on a slide and then share it all and talk about it. Make it one of those first week things that we do where there's not pressure on academia, but more on how we're going to set up our classroom to where we feel safe together. And model it. So I'm on the right side now. Begin to model respectful behavior in discussion post responses, and rewards are created as well. Now, these links you'll be able to access when you download the actual slides that I created. So be sure to check that out as well. Create a student gallery space. These kind of things that I have here on the right-hand side are going to start to create that interaction between students. So the gallery space, they can share their work that they've done there as though it's a bulletin board. Padlet's a great thing to do that with, or slides. You can have one slide where they post their work to and they shrink it down. They can, or they have multiple slides to put it on and they can all access it. Padlet is like a big bulletin board. Reward behaviors. There should be aligned with some sort of classroom creed that you guys bring up in your classes and remind them throughout their time working with you. Maybe they repeat it with you every time you meet live. Office hours. Office hours and friend zones and compliment spaces, these are all chances that your students will have to socialize with you and with all your friends. Making it an established come and go as you please situation is especially great for the older students that are used to popping in during their lunchtime or during that open time in the beginning of the day when they were in person. And we all know that these students learn best from each other as well. So having that space to be able to interact with each other just as though it was their group share time or their recess time, that'll give them their chances to socialize and feel more comfortable sharing their learning in a public way from then on. Hope you're taking notes. All right, teaching presence. Let's see how we do with this. Ooh, background. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Classroom management, lesson design, and facilitating discourse. How are we going to create this ourselves? The teaching presence.